Hello, all. Jason Smith here with Keller Williams Capital Realty in Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, in the beautiful Miami area, along with team member Francisco Otalvaro. Francisco is the buyer specialist on our team, so he's got a lot of experience working with buyers over the last 15 years. And he's going to share with us a little bit today what he's actually seeing out there in the trenches in the marketplace. As you may know, I focus on the listing side of the business. Francisco focuses on the buyer side, helping buyers get the property of their dreams, residential or commercial. Zyrell, could you please share a testimonial that we just received for Francisco from one of his clients? So here it is. He closed this one in record time. Literally, by the time he met this buyer until the time they closed was 3 weeks with financing, which is an unusually quick time to close a finance deal. I'll read it here for you briefly. My wife and I worked with Francisco Otalvaro as our buying agent. We could not have been better taken care of. From the first property we saw, he discussed what we were looking for and set us up to receive the automated home listings filtered to our specs. When we saw the one we purchased, we made an offer and he ensured everything was in order from our side. All inspections and reviews were completed on time. We closed ahead of time, which, as anyone who lives in Miami knows, nothing is on time and usually late. I highly recommend Jason Smith team and Francisco specifically. So thanks, Zyrell. Bravo, Francisco. Would love to just ask you how that whole thing happened. If you can kind of take a step by step from the moment you met the client, what were some of the challenges they were having? Had they been looking for a while? What was your approach to get this done so efficiently?
Well, first and foremost, I believe the lead came from, that was a lead that you referred to me. Thank you for that, Jason. But I believe that was a lead that came to you from your door knocking. I think it was connected to that. So when you first introduced me to the client, they already had a home in mind that they wanted to go ahead and take a look at, and they wanted to put an offer in. This home was within their price range, but they did know already that they probably needed to put another probably 50 or 60 or maybe even $70,000 back into the home, which they were okay with. So that's how we initially started the process. Try to set up the appointment for them, get them out there immediately, speak to lead, as you and I always talk about, right? Especially with a motivated buyer. You really need to get things moving quickly if they're motivated, and try to get them to the door as quickly as you possibly can. Because in this market, homes that are undervalued or homes that are actually extremely well done and turnkey, it's going to be it's going to be a race to the finish line in being able to get your offer in. So the first home that we were.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question? First of all, you hear many people saying, okay, I'm going to wait for the market to come down. I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. So why would they be motivated with that macro?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now. So my question to you is,
Well,
why would they be motivated if they think that the interest rate, if you hear people saying, I'm going to wait till interest rates come down, I'm going to wait till the market come down. Why would they be motivated now?
So that's a very good question, and there's two different thoughts of school on that, right? But the number one is the buyer that is willing to wait, the buyer that's waiting for the correction, and then you got the buyer who has already set in their mind that despite of where the market is right now and despite where the interest rates are right now, I'm going to buy now and then make the adjustments down the road. I think with this particular buyer, well, one of the big differences is that they were local. So they've lived in Miami and South Florida for, I think, the better part of 25, almost 30 years. So they were very familiar of the trends of the South Florida market, which was very helpful in just going through the education process with them, because there was nothing new that I was telling them as far as the trend of the market here in South Florida. So although we had a slight correction just in the couple of months where prices have kind of dropped, even listing prices, as well as the new listing prices of homes, we haven't seen such a substantial drop where it constitutes a fire sale and a major discount. And I think that's where a lot of buyers are missing an opportunity. Everyone's sitting around waiting for that for that fire sale, that super discount, that major correction. And quite frankly, if you look at the trends in South Florida market, we've had pullbacks, but only pullbacks where the market has leveled off and then taken off again. And it does appear that that was the mentality of this couple, that they felt that buying now would be the right time. Jumping into the interest rate that they had right now would be the right time. And then down the road, the strategy was to just refinance. But at least they would have a home. At least they would be able to lock in a price for a home today and not worry about where the price of that home will be in a year from now. So really just getting into the market.
Great point. The expression that we hear is date the interest rate, marry the home, right? Marry the home. It's a temporary thing with this interest rate. You can always refinance down the road if and when the interest rates come down, right? So
that's correct. And I think again, it's just a mental state for a lot of sellers or a lot of buyers. And it would behoove them to do their due diligence with their lenders and really find out what their options are. Listen, at a 7.5% interest rate, I mean, we're on average for what is it? The last 50 years? I mean, the last time we had interest rates of this amount, I think was probably I would say probably about a decade ago, right?
Good point. Could you share that slide for a second? It's going to show us for the last 50 years what the interest rates have been, to your example right here. So back in 1980, we hit 16.63% for the annual mortgage rate. Okay. And then this is the last 50 years pretty much. And then you see 2021, it got down to 2.96. And then now it's what, 6, maybe 7%, would you say? 8% on an investment property? Is that fair to say, would you say?
About 7.5.
Okay, gotcha. So the message here is that the historical average from 1990 to 2021, it has been 5.97% interest rate. And if you go back to 72, the interest rate has been 7.81, which is where we are now. So that's the average of the last 50 years. So that gives us some perspective, doesn't it? When people say, okay, last year it was at 3%, or 2 years ago, 3%, now it's at 7.5%. We're back in a normal market is what this is saying, right?
That is correct. And I think also, with buyers, don't be so hung up on, the great hope of interest rates dropping below 5% anytime soon. Remember, interest rates go up much higher, much quicker than they do come down. So the pullback on interest rates in the next quarters to come is going to be very slow. Certainly not as fast as they went up. And our interest rates at 2% and even at 3%, I mean, that was a very isolated incident, right? I mean, that was because COVID hit. The Fed needed to stimulate the economy in a very aggressive way. So, the likelihood of something like that happening again is, way far and thin in between. So, while these interest rates are hovering around 7.5%, like I said, it would behoove a buyer to speak to their lenders and figure out what they can lock in. And just, as you said, Jason, date the rate and marry the home. And that's really the mentality. That's what's going to allow you to win in this market today.
So what are you seeing, Francisco, in terms of being in the trenches now with buyers versus a year ago, 2 years ago, when you had these 3% interest rate? What is the buyer experience now versus then at 3% interest rates?
Well, we're definitely not, although there is competition still out there, we're not seeing the aggressive competition that we saw back to like a year and a half, 2 years ago, where just offers were being thrown left and right blindly. I mean, overbidding. I mean, just ridiculous stuff, right? And more offers and more creativity in offers than a seller could deal with. Now, I think you have serious buyers that are out there, which is a great thing because they're motivated. And you're finding yourself in a pool of maybe 3 or 4 other offers, per listing when you're going in and you're bidding, which is far better than trying to compete with 15 and 20 other buyers. Which, if those of us who saw the market 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago know that that was a reality and it was frustrating. And then unless you had cash and unless you were going, 30, 40, 50,000, if you were in the 4 million range, if you were going above 200, 300, 400,000 on the offering price, you weren't getting the home. So now there is flexibility with the sellers. They are a lot more mindful. Number two, their listing prices have been somewhat more reasonable. I don't think they're trying to get over the top prices for their homes. But with the good homes, you are seeing fairly a fairly handful of competition. So you do still have to come in there as a buyer with very good terms, very appealing terms, and terms that obviously are favorable to both the seller and to the buyer himself.
Understood. Sounds good. So can you tell us, so it's funny to hear you say that dealing with 4 or 5 competing buyers is a cakewalk compared to 1.5 to 2 years ago. So what are some of the things that you as an agent do to help your clients win in a competitive environment when there's 4 other buyers making an offer, like what just happened with you?
Well, in this particular case, and this takes me back to one of the Zoom conference team meetings that we had, where we got another agent in there, very successful agent at Keller Williams. Forgot his name, but I remember one of the things that he discussed, and this has worked really well with several of my buyers. As soon as that listing comes out, you get in touch with that listing agent and you tell them, hey, listen, I got an interested buyer. What are exactly the terms that your seller's looking for, right? And in this particular case, it was similar, but we had the opportunity to meet with the listing agent face to face. And that question was presented to the listing agent in front of my buyers. So that way there was no sugarcoating. The listing agent basically said, look, this is what my seller's looking for. This is what they're doing. They're leaving, they're moving out. Here's the terms that we need. If that's something that works for you guys, get us an offer on the table and let's make a deal happen. So that kind of, presenting that question, whether you have your buyer with you or not, but presenting that question to the listing agent and really knowing what that seller needs in order to get the deal done is really going to help you navigate through your offer a lot smoother. And, and at least get some kind of pulse out of the seller in being able to start negotiating terms.
Gotcha. I'm hearing you say how important it is to have, for the listing agent and the buyer agent, yourself in this case, to have a rapport face to face, even better than a phone call. Just human communication, rapport, trust starts to weed out the other offers, even if
Correct.
on paper they have better terms. Because I know you compete against cash offers frequently in these multiple offer situations at the same price you're at. Yet
That's correct.
That rapport building with the listing agent, talking about closing dates, etc., and appraisals, etc., you've been able to win over cash deals, which is quite impressive.
Yes, that is correct. And it also helps our lender is very strong. They're very savvy at what they do, very assertive, but they get the job done and they get the deal done, to the point where, as soon as we're putting in an offer, they're reaching out to the listing agent themselves and giving that listing agent reassurance of how qualified that buyer is, how assured they can be that we're going to take this particular deal through the finish line, how quickly we're going to get the appraisal done, how quickly we're going to get the inspection done, right? So a lot of that is all performance based, and how quickly you get an offer on the table, how clean you get that offer on the table, how well you stipulate the terms and are receptive to the seller's needs as well, all builds that trust and credibility between your offer and somebody else's offer, and whether it might be a cash offer on the other hand.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you going in there strong, and you've got the mortgage broker partner which is just further credibility and validity to the seller, the listing agent, that it will happen. It's not just the realtor saying it, it's a realtor and the mortgage broker. So that's as a listing agent, if I were to hear that, I would really gravitate towards that offer, because now the mortgage broker is getting involved. So it's a great point that you brought to the table. Question for you on appraisals. Are appraisals an issue these days? And did you have appraisal issues with this particular property? That, again, you closed this one in 21 days on a finance deal, which is very impressive. How did the
Right.
appraisal?
So, well, initially when we took a look at the comps, we had a conversation, and we figured that we were off, that the listing price was a little bit off from what the comps showed. But nevertheless,
You say
with
saying comparable sales, right? Recent sales in the
the
past.
comparable right,
Yeah.
recent
Okay.
sales. Well, it's just like 3 months. Yeah, 3 months, 6 months. I mean, it was slightly off, not a whole lot, just slightly off. But with the appraisal, again, with the lender that we were using, they were very quick to get the appraisal completed and give us a very good idea of what to forecast and prepare ourselves for it. The buyer, knowing that they were willing to put money out front regardless for a makeover on an older home, they were okay with going in and putting in the difference, that appraisal gap that we talked about, right? Because one of the terms that the seller wanted was assurance of the purchase price of the contract. So in order to seal that, we needed to come in and fill in the appraisal gap. That's simply meaning that if the
gap, just so you understand, so it's appraisal, like, so say 800 is your sales price, but it appraises 780. Let's say the bank says it's worth 780. We'll loan you on 780. The appraisal gap is $20,000 difference that the buyer has to be willing to come extra cash at the closing, correct?
Right. They got to commit to that amount. That's exactly correct. And to my buyer's credit, again, knowing what he knows of the market and knowing what the market has done, there was no question in mind that, he wanted the home. He wanted to lock in a home, marry the home, right? And worry about the interest rate and the financing down the road. But they definitely did not want to find themselves in a position in a year from now where, they would have been, man, we should have bought a year ago. You follow me? We should have bought it and held on to it, because it's what the trend of the South Florida market shows. If you go back 5 years or 10 years, the trend in the South Florida market is upward. It's not downward, it's upward. And the values of homes just, keep going up. And even in this day and age, it's sustainable. The amount of people that are moving to Miami, the amount of buyers that are coming into Miami just on a daily basis, and the new purchases, it's it makes this and it makes this market very sustainable.
Yeah, not to mention inflation. I mean, getting in now in an inflating environment, if you can lock in now this mortgage for 30 years, you're locking in today's prices as inflation goes up over the years. So that's another reason to buy now. And as Gary Keller, the co-founder of Keller Williams, who we work for, the largest real estate company in the world, says, don't wait to buy real estate. Instead, buy real estate and wait, right? So get in now and start having everything work for you. Equity build up, hedge against inflation, all that stuff. Just it's, instead of paying rent.
That's correct. That's correct. And I think that's the mentality where this buyer came in, and I have other buyers that have that same mentality as well. For the other buyers, it's just a matter of finding that right inventory. Finding that right inventory and acting quickly and swiftly. And I think that's very key. Just the way we moved in sync with this buyer as well. I mean, they were motivated after they realized that when we lost that first home, and then I rearranged the search criteria, and we started kind of honing in their targeted areas, and we started seeing homes that were really appealing to their taste. Speed to lead, moving quickly, swiftly, getting in touch with the agent, just trying to make things happen very quickly in a very short span of time with a motivated buyer is very, very key. And at the end of the day, they did come in with an appraisal commitment. The appraisal was done almost, I mean, that was, again, thanks to our lender. That was completed, in a very short period of time, which allowed us to come through with a loan commitment in less than 15 days and a closing in less than 23 days.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, congratulations again, Francisco. Thank you for sharing what you're seeing out there. And if anyone would like to buy a house and they want someone who's experienced in the South Florida market, I can think of no one other than Francisco Otavero right here on our team. How can they reach you, Francisco?
Yes, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can call me or text me 786-571-1118, and I'll be more than happy to help you and guide you through your home purchase needs.
Got it. Thank you so much, Francisco. Appreciate it. Keep on selling.
You got it. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.